Okay, so thanks everybody for taking a couple minutes to join for another one of these Teams talks today. I'm going to talk about ways to find legitimacy of a journal that you're reading or considering maybe making a submission to for publishing an article. There's just some kind of useful tools. Some of them we actually have access to through Liberty. One of them is a free resource, but it's really a really good one to know. It's actually built by a librarian, which is pretty cool. But the things I'm going to be showing today include Beals List, Scopus, which has index of journals. We've talked about Scopus before. You might use it already. Things to look for on online journals to kind of help you figure out whether or not this is likely legitimate or not. And then something else we have access to through Serial Solutions is called Ulrichs Web, which is another resource that we have. These aren't really commonly used resources. So like if you go to the LUCOM library page, you won't necessarily find it under here where we've got a lot of the popular things listed. But if you click on the research guide link, it'll open up our LibGuide that you've probably seen before. And if you go to the A to Z database list, you'll find links for all the things we're going to talk about, and they're alphabetical. So one of the first things, I'm probably going to spend the most time talking about this because I think it's so neat. It's called Beals List. And you might hear it called Beals List of potential predatory journals, but a lot of people just call it Beals List. And it's a free resource. It was built by a librarian, and it has a searchable database for journals, vanity press, even publishers that you might be predatory if you're not really sure or not. There's an original list down here where they're alphabetical, and they add and update this every once in a while. And some of these, just looking at the titles, you wouldn't know, like Academic Research Publishing Group. I don't, but they add to this list periodically. You can also search if you have a URL or a publisher name that you want to search for here. You can look through that. Standalone journals, this is more just journal titles that you're looking for. And again, there's a list here that they've added to occasionally. With the index, they'll add a new title as it becomes apparent that it's predatory or not legitimate, and they'll add that to this list. I want to see if I can find something else that we talk about is vanity press that you can search here. And vanity press, I guess, maybe not as bad as a predatory journal, but it's not as good as what we're looking for, like really, rigorous peer review, academic research being published in a journal. So you can actually search for that specifically here. And there's also a list. Each one of these has lists that they add to as new organizations become apparent that they're either vanity or a predatory journal or publisher. Something else I wanted to point out was on this first tab for publishers on Beals List. If you come over here to the right, they have links to useful pages, and they've even got journals falsely claiming to be indexed, journals added and removed from these lists, non-recommended medical periodicals that you might want to avoid. This is pretty cool, this retraction watch, because we actually talk about that in the lecture that the library gets for PBM. We talk about retracted articles, but there's actually a retraction watch, and this doesn't sound very academic, but flaky academic journals blogs. Kind of cool. But so you can see here, they've got different tools available. JCR Master Journal List, Journal Evaluation Tool. So this is a free resource. This is just bealslist.net. It's freely available to anybody that wants to use it, whether they're a student or faculty or not. I've added a link to it to our research guide, and you'll actually find it here under Bates Visual Guide to Physical Examination is Beals List right there. The second thing I wanted to say we could use as a tool for checking the legitimacy of a journal is Scopus. And we've talked about Scopus before. I think I've done one of these Teams talks before on Scopus. We used to use a resource called Web of Science, which you've probably heard of. We don't have that anymore, but Scopus kind of takes the place of that in a lot of ways. To access their index of journal titles, you're going to have to create an account and actually sign into the resource. It's free. We pay for access to it, but you can create an account for free, and you'll see it says RM because I'm signed in here. And this is what you see when you get to the main Scopus page. But here there's this little, you can search for titles, but they have a sources link right here. And it'll actually show you we've got over 43,000 indexed journals. These are legitimate journals. So if this, I suppose if you had a journal title, you come here and search for it or get an alphabetical list and look through it. You even have facets over here where you can show which types of resources, if we're just looking at journals, or you can include, if you want to see open access journals as well. They also have a feature, I did this earlier, I won't do it again, but you can actually download a spreadsheet that has a list of all the legitimate journals they have indexed in Scopus. It takes a little while, it's a huge file, but and you can see they include citation metrics, document metrics, all the ways they measure the impact factor. They don't call it impact factor, they call it something else in Scopus, but it's basically impact factor. And so this is one of the ways you can check for legitimacy of a journal that you're either looking at doing research in, or if you want to make a submission to a journal, you can look for it here and see if you find it. Another thing I wanted to mention, just as kind of a tip, if you're not sure, maybe you are, if you're not looking at Scopus or you're not looking at Beals List, we have access to a journal, obviously it's legitimate, it's academic medicine, it's a legitimate journal. But one of the things that they suggest that I found on other LibGuides as really good suggestions is look for instructions on how to make submissions. Look for descriptions of how their peer review process looks. Don't just look for, oh, send us $20 and we'll put your article in this paper. You know, like this, you want to actually, and here on academic medicine, for example, they literally have a menu for authors where you can submit a manuscript. They have information for authors making your submissions. If you go to journal info for this particular journal, they've also got links to submit a manuscript, but there are information for reviewers, for media. So if you're going to be doing peer review for this journal, for articles, they've got information for those people. So just, it's not like hard and fast rule, but if you see it, if you're looking through a journal online, you're not sure, look for this information, look for submission information, reviewing information, how their peer review process works, and that'll give you another kind of hint that it's a legitimate journal. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was kind of new to me. This is called Ulrichs. I won't do this. It's called Ulrichs Web, and this is a paid resource. It's through Serial Solutions, which is a resource the university pays for. And they index, just like Scopus, they index legitimate journals. Something they do, I need to learn more about this, so I don't want to say too much about it, but you can actually, I won't say this, but you can change your language. But they include what they call emerging source citations, which I think is kind of cool because if those of you who are familiar with the LUCOM Research Journal through Curious, part of the thing that was so appealing about going through Curious was that Curious is already indexed in Medline and PubMed, and the process to get an individual, so by our hosting our research journal on the channel on Curious, our content is indexed in PubMed and Medline. If you have a standalone journal that's going through the process of, I believe it has to be 2 years old, it has to have, or it may have to be 5 years old, I can't remember, before you can even submit your journal for being indexed in Medline. And that's a pretty rigorous process. And if it gets rejected, you have to wait like another 5 years before you can resubmit. So the idea to me that you can find what they call emerging source citations here that might not necessarily be established as being indexed in PubMed or Medline yet is a pretty cool feature of this. And you can search, you can here, like it says here, you can search the title, or if you know the ISSN. If you go to advanced search, you'll see you can find, what do we have here? Circulation type. So they should have open access listed here somewhere, whether it's print or online. It's like any database. I mean, you can search through publication year. This is kind of crazy. Go back to 1665. But the main thing I wanted to say about Ulrichs Web is this is a paid resource. I've put a link to it on our research guide. It's under that A to Z database list down here. And again, it includes that emerging source citation. And also something I wanted to point out too, I was telling Dr. Martin this before we got started. So if I look up Curious, you'll see it's actually here. And it's actually, they have information for it. So our channel is being indexed in this as well because it's on Curious. I mean, because it's on Ulrichs Web. But something else I just real briefly wanted to point out. Sometimes you'll look through these resources like Scopus and they'll say peer review. For whatever reason, they call it refereed. That's what they mean. When they say refereed, they mean peer reviewed in this resource. So so you can use this as another way to check legitimacy. Again, all of these are just tools. If you're not sure about a journal, if you're looking at, maybe you've researched or found some kind of obscure citation, or maybe you're looking at making a submission of an article to be published in something, and you really want to know what you're getting into before you make a submission to that journal or publisher. So that's pretty much it for today. It's really short, but I know this is an issue that comes up. I know sometimes we have students asking about journals. They're not really sure if they are looking to publish a paper or do some project. So these are pretty useful tools to kind of help you know what you're getting into. So
does this, so when we get these emails like monthly, asking us to submit to certain journals, we can just take the name of it and plug this into one of these resources, and does it tell you the cost, the ones that say, it's going to be $1,500 to submit this? Does it give you information?
I don't know if it tells you like price wise. I think some of them you get information about whether or not it's paid or free.
Okay.
I'm not sure if this one says it. I don't know if Curious says it online. Maybe this isn't it. Maybe I need to find another one here. I'm not sure if they all show price, but some of them do show whether it's a paid or a free to publish in.
Okay.
Thank you guys for your time. I hope you guys are having a nice rest of your day.
Thanks. Good to know we have that resource. Know about it. Thank you, Rob.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks, Rob.
Absolutely. Have a great day, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.